This is Kite Cutter TV with another presentation. We gotta talk about this. Okay, guys, Joe Biden is at it again. He's reversed Trump's public charge policy that didn't allow illegal immigrants to access welfare and public benefits that are paid by taxpayers. A rule change. Immigrants can access benefits without affecting citizenship application. Whoopee. A change in the immigration application process this week allows immigrant families to access benefits from health, nutrition, and housing programs without fear that it'll affect their chances for applying for citizenship. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security announced it will stop defending the public charge final rule that was first published in August 2019. The rule created more ways to decide if an immigrant was a public charge when applying for entry to the United States or a change in immigration status like applying for a green card. I mean, this was one of the best immigration policies that Trump introduced. Because if an immigrant or a migrant to the United States can't show that they can take care of themselves without being on welfare or asking for assistance from the United States government, then they wouldn't be allowed to come into the country. To me, that sounds like a no-brainer common sense rule. And now, because Biden doesn't have any common sense and he's a no-brainer, literally, he reverses the policy. Now, House GOP leaders are getting sick of this and they're pushing back a little bit. House GOP leaders to visit the border amid concerns of a new immigration crisis. Republican House leaders plan to tour the U.S.-Mexico border next week, where they say the Biden administration is creating a security and humanitarian crisis through lax immigration policies. So it's good to see that at least some GOP members of the Republican Party are pushing back on these nonsense immigration policies that Joe Biden is trying to push to pander to the New World Order and Catholic charities and also all of the illegal immigration advocates. So we got that and a lot more immigration news to get into. Check this out.
Welcome back at 6:14. It's time for your morning rush. Big national headlines you really need to know about as you head out the door this morning. And first up, President Biden is reversing a Trump policy on green card restrictions. So the 2019 public charge regulation will no longer be enforced. The policy previously allowed U.S. officials to have more wiggle room to reject an immigrant's green card application if they were likely to be dependent on public assistance.
This year, we've seen double the number of apprehensions at the border. In fact, CBP just released this afternoon that in February, there were over 100,000 apprehensions.
Republican lawmakers blame President Biden for the new spike in migrants arriving at the U.S. border.
In terms of unaccompanied minors, the beds are filled to capacity. In terms of adults coming into the country, many of them are infected currently with coronavirus.
Biden administration officials say they inherited the problems from the previous administration, and it'll take time to fix them.
We can't just undo 4 years of the previous administration's actions overnight. Those actions didn't just neglect our immigration system, they intentionally made it worse.
Roberta Jacobson oversees border policy on the National Security Council.
The president has committed to seeking $4 billion over 4 years to address the root causes of migration.
Jacobson said the administration will also create a fairer and faster asylum process beyond no longer requiring asylum seekers to wait in Mexico.
We are announcing the restarting of the Central American Minors Program for children to be reunited with a parent who is legally in the United States.
Republican lawmakers plan to lead a delegation to the border next week. In Washington, Alexandra Limon.
Lady from Georgia.
Thank you so much to the good gentleman from Texas. And I have to tell you, Jared, that you spoke about, I met his aunt and uncle a few years ago, and he suffered a death that is too much to think about. And suffering it, him being an American citizen, born here free, and being murdered like he was by illegal aliens, criminals, animals, is just too much to bear. This is the people's house. This is the House of Representatives that I've started to call the House of Hypocrites. This entire campus right now is surrounded by a border wall with razor wire. It's a fence unlike anything at our southern border. This place is surrounded by the military. It is completely guarded, but we don't extend the same thing to the American people. Joe Biden administration, my Democrat colleagues here in Congress, Democrats in the Senate, they want the border ripped wide open, and that's what it is right now. I just watched a video that was shared this morning from Southeast Texas, where there are hundreds, perhaps thousands of people lined up to cross the Rio Grande, and they are being smuggled into our country by human traffickers. You see, it's big business to come into our country illegally. And Joe Biden is rewarding the smugglers, the coyotes, the cartels in Mexico and these other countries by opening our borders up and welcoming them all in, while they're forcing our kids to stay home and paying off these teacher union bosses. They have wide open 100% capacity in-person teaching for illegal children. What kind of country is this that rewards people that break into our country illegally, but yet abuses its citizens and taxpayers? There needs to be a change. And this is Joe Biden's crisis that he will never recover from. People are not stupid, no matter if they vote one party or the other. But the American people are going to be sick and tired of being run over and treated this way. Everybody wants to cry about COVID-19, the most politicized virus, a political tool that shut down America. Well, let me tell you something. All these people that I just watched on this video, they're not wearing masks like we're required to do. They're bringing all kinds of diseases into our country, but yet they're being welcomed in. Here, come to school. Here's a bus ride to another city. Come on in. Yet America is still not fully open because of COVID-19. There's so many reasons that we can call this the House of Hypocrites that we could be here all day long. But I appreciate the time. Thank you so much. And I yield back.
There's a new push to expand healthcare options for undocumented immigrants. Today, lawmakers will hear public testimony on a bill that would offer health coverage to people regardless of their immigration status.
Fox 61's Angela Bavaro is joining us live at the Capitol with more details on this. Angela, good morning.
Good morning, and supporters of this proposed legislation argue that health care is a human right and that nobody should be denied that right just because of their immigration status. So that is where this new bill comes in. It is Senate Bill 956, and as we mentioned, it would expand access to Connecticut's Medicaid program called Husky. So that legislation would provide Husky health coverage to state residents who meet certain criteria to some Husky programs, regardless of their immigration status. Now, we have been reviewing some of that public testimony that has been submitted for the hearing today. The National Association of Social Workers Connecticut chapter writing, quote, "The fact is that the undocumented community is blocked from accessing health coverage and often health care itself in Connecticut. They cannot apply to Access Health CT's health plans, are not eligible for Husky, and private insurance companies are either too expensive or outright reject applications due to lack of social security numbers," end quote. And the Husky for Immigrants Coalition also weighing in on this legislation, calling it a step in the right direction. But the organization does say, quote, "As it is written right now, it leaves out many in our undocumented community. SB 956 leaves out low-income parents, caretakers, and children under Husky A, and low-income elderly and disabled individuals under Husky C." They go on to say, quote, "The bill must be amended to fix these coverage gaps." Now, that public hearing is set to start today at 10 a.m. It's going to be virtual. And before that, Husky for Immigrants will be hosting their own news conference to go over this new legislation. That's going to be happening at 9:30 a.m. So, of course, we'll get you all those updates live as they happen. But for now, reporting live at the state capitol, Angelo Bavaro, Fox 61 News.
The state Senate and House each approve a bill calling on North Carolina sheriffs to work with federal ICE officers. The bills would require sheriff's offices to monitor the immigration status of jail inmates and help federal agents seeking their custody. The bills are similar to a 2019 proposal that Governor Roy Cooper, vetoed. Several North Carolina sheriffs campaigned on that issue of not working with ICE, including Wake County Sheriff Gerald Baker.
We all know and we all understand, and we'll all continue to fight each and every day, all day long and all night long. And should this legislation get passed, we will look forward to our governor to veto it.
Now, if either bill is passed, any sheriff's office that does not comply with ICE, detainers could be punished.
As vaccinations open up to more people, many people want to get the shot, but they still have some concerns.
There are thousands of undocumented people right here in Ohio who may be wondering how or even if they can sign up. 10 TV's Gabriela Garcia helping to clear the air tonight.
There was not so much a hesitancy, there was just a lot of questions.
Ramona Reyes is a board member for Columbus City Schools and the director for Our Lady of Guadalupe Center, helping poor and vulnerable families who are often undocumented.
They've been asking, when can I register? I'm waiting for an English speaker. If you call in, having someone speak in Spanish.
Columbus Public Health says they do have Spanish language resources online and translators waiting to take their calls.
When you do register, we ask you demographic information, so your name, your date of birth, your address, your phone number, your email address if you have it, what phase you qualify for. We do not ask anyone's immigration status. We do ask you if you have health insurance, but we will vaccinate individuals without health insurance. We do it all the time.
Columbus Public Health does ask for people's social security numbers, but it's not necessary to put one down. As far as documentation when you show up for the shot, they do ask for ID.
And that's really just to verify that the person who shows up is the same person who made the appointment. And that ID can be anything. It can be obviously a driver's license, passport, or work ID with your picture on it can be used. And if people don't have it, by no means do we turn them away.
Undocumented or documented, Dr. Roberts says the city will work with everyone to get them vaccinated.
Columbus Public Health is a safe place to go and get their vaccine.
Reporting in Columbus, Gabriela Garcia, 10 TV News.
Columbus Public Health is working with agencies across the city to get the facts to them. They're holding vaccine clinics catered to Latinx and Somali individuals in the next few weeks. You can find when and where those are happening on our website, 10tv.com.
Joining our conversation, Mike Pompeo. Welcome to our program today.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks for having me on. Good morning, Dana.
So a few things to run through. Let's start with these ICE arrests. This is October to February. Just look at the drop on the screen. I mean, 1,000 a month. If you go back to October of last year, you're at 7,400. February of now, it's 2,300. They've ditched a number of your policies. How's that working out?
Bill, what it's leading to is a calamity for people who are being trafficked across the border. It's a calamity for American citizens who are here suffering from the drugs that are going to flow across the border alongside of this. It's tragic for people who want to come into our country lawfully, too, who are waiting in line while these folks are coming across unlawfully. And this is an enormous crisis on our southern border. We had in place a set of policies that were humane, decent, and protected American sovereignty. We sure as heck knew who the heck was coming into our country. And we had a set of policies that reduced the flow and the trafficking of these people across the border. These kids who come across with the coyotes preying upon them is absolutely tragic. And the Biden administration's policies have incentivized this to happen and are making those people really wealthy at the expense of all those who are trying to make their way north when they think that there'll be something here for them that will improve their lives.
You mentioned the coyotes, and I'm really interested in that and your interactions with the leaderships of those countries in Central and South America, or even in Mexico, in terms of them not being able to do anything to ensure rule of law in their countries. It seems like a lawless situation. The cartels are very powerful, and now the coyotes that are bringing the migrants in, apparently, all of them have been tagged by these cartels, and that's coming right into our country. It's not good for the American citizens, of course, but really not good for those migrants, in particular the children.
Dana, what has happened down in Central America is absolutely tragic. We've had governments that haven't been able to provide for their citizens. And so if you're a mother of one of these children or a father, you can see why they would want to try and find a better life for their people. I'm enormously sympathetic to that. I think we all are. But the reality is that we did good work in the Trump administration. We tried to help people down there. We tried to help those governments be more successful. We demanded that the Mexican government not allow these traffic flows to continue in from Guatemala and from El Salvador and from Honduras. They put National Guardsmen on the border. This created the right incentive system for these governments to take care of their own people and not try and transfer these problems to the United States of America. It was the right thing for American sovereignty and for the American people, and I regret that the Biden administration has moved frankly, farther than even the Obama administration did with respect to creating completely open borders on our southern border.
Those are the real three changes there. ICE priorities are lower, as we showed on the graphic there, the agreements with the Northern Triangle countries, and also to remain in Mexico policy that's been ditched as well. Dana asked the question about smugglers. We associate them with drugs. Are they now using human beings as a commodity and their smuggling practices to make money?
Bill, sadly, they are. They get paid a handsome price, and the price varies. There's frankly a market for this. They get paid a handsome price for trafficking children across the border who are unaccompanied, or they'll bring families across. Often that's the only wealth that those families had, and they're in terribly difficult situations. And these coyotes, they prey on these individuals. It is not humane to create this false set of incentives for these folks to come across and make this arduous travel across their own country, then across Mexico, and try to get into the United States of America. We had these policies right. We worked hard. I worked diligently to convince the Mexican government to allow us to have these asylum seekers remain in Mexico. You talked about that policy. It was approved by the courts. It was working, and now this administration has abandoned it, and the coyotes will be the primary beneficiaries of this.